All right, in today's reading, I'm going to be reading several chapters, several passages in the chapters, because I think they coincide with one another. So we are going to start in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 9 through 12, which is putting away the wicked. And it says, I wrote unto you in an epistle not to company with fornicators. Study notes chapter 5, verse 9 says, Paul, previous epistle is long since lost, yet not altogether with the fornicators of this world, or with the covetous, or extortioners, or with idolaters, for then must ye needs go out of the world. But in verse 10, Paul corrected a mistaken perception that the admonition in the letter, verse 9, had prohibited them from mixing socially with non-believers, fornicators of this world. He actually had meant not to mix with believers who live like unbelievers in verse 13, or verse 3 and 3. Chapter 3, verse 3. Let me see. Yet for ye are yet carnal, for whereas there is among you envy and strife and divisions, are ye not carnal and walk as men? Yeah. So don't walk as those. But now I have written unto you not to keep company, if any man that is called a brother be a fornicator or covetous, or an idolater, or a railer, or a drunkard, or an extortioner, which such in one not to eat. For what? Verse 11, to eat with such people could be taken as a sign of condoning their worldly lifestyle. Basically, it's just stating not to be around people that are believers who still want to live in the worldly aspect, right? Simply plain and put, yeah, just don't keep company with those, because good character or bad company corrupts good character. There you go. Bad company corrupts good character, and that's what that'll be. It'll be like them saying, oh yeah, you can believe in Jesus, you can do this and that, and still live, how you want to, because Jesus forgives sins. No, that's not the case. Stay away from those people. For what have I to do to judge them also that are without? Do not ye judge them that are within, but them that are without God judgeth. Therefore put away from among yourselves that wicked person. Verse 12 through 13, Paul concludes by quoting God's repeated exhortation in Deuteronomy 13:5, 17:7, 12, 19:19, 21:21, 22:21, 24:24, 7, to show that the church, just as Israel, must remove from their midst those who live in flagrant rebellion to God's law. Now we'll be in chapter 10, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, starting with verse 14 through 22, and the title of the passage is No Fellowship with Devils, right? Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry. I speak as to the wise men. Judge ye what I say. The cup of blessing which we bless, it is not the communion of the blood of Christ. The bread which we break, is it not the communion of the body of Christ? For we being many are one bread and one body, for we are all partakers of that one bread. Behold, study notes 10, 16 through 17. Paul wanted the Corinthians to know that the participants at the Lord's Supper represented a unified body that is dependent on the death of Christ. The phrase, for we being many are one bread and one body, refers to the individual members who make up one corporate body, the church, in chapters 12 through 27. bread. Behold, Israel after the flesh are not they which eat of the sacrifices, partakers of that altar, of the altar. What say I then? That the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to idols is anything? But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to God. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils. Ye cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of the devils. Do we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? Which, of course, the answer is no. Verses 18 through 22. Actual idolatry in verse 14 is in view here. Not merely partaking of food offered to idols in chapter 8, 1 through 13. Participation in idolatrous rites is a violation of the believer's union with Christ, and thus with the one body relationship that they had with other believers. Verses 18 through 19. Israel is in the present context refers ultimately to the sinful wilderness generation. Likewise, Paul's reference to the altar probably alludes to Exodus 32, 5 through 6, cited in 1 Corinthians 10, 7, which recounts Aaron's building of an altar in front of the idol, the golden calf. Verses 10 through 21. Paul prohibited participation in pagan ritualistic meals because this involved intimacy with devils. He continued to affirm the non-reality of idols as deities, 8, 4 through 6. But demons are both real and powerful. The word they refers back to idolatrous Israel in the wilderness when they overlooked demonic presence, just as the Corinthian believers were tempted to do. And last but not least, we are in chapter 13, 1 Corinthians 13, starting with verse 11 through 13. It would be putting away childish things. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now, verse 11, Paul uses the analogy of infancy versus adulthood to explain the contrast between our present understanding and the understanding we will have in the next age. Things. For now, we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. Verse 13, of faith, hope, charity. Charity is the greatest because it continues to the next age. Both faith and hope will be fulfilled in eternity, and so will not remain.